You ready?
Yeah, let's do this. Hello, everybody. Bree Milani here with Sky Insurance Brokers, and today I have Andrew Vierra with me. Thank you for coming on the show.
You are very welcome. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you on. Andrew is with Wealthwise Mortgage Planning, and he's based out of Folsom, but I know you kind of are all over the place. But I actually met Andrew through Real Producers of Sacramento probably about a year ago, or maybe longer. And it was kind of interesting when I met you. I remember I was like, oh, he does VA loans? Like, so does that mean he works for the VA? I didn't understand what exactly you did, but as I've gotten to know you, it's quite interesting. So I wanted to bring you on here, have you share your story about, obviously your family and how you got in the industry and everything. So excited to have you on. So tell us a little bit about how, your family. I know you have kids and a wife. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So yes, wife and two sons. My oldest son is a software engineer in Austin, Texas. And then his younger brother, 2 years younger, is a Blackhawk pilot in the Army.
Crazy.
He's at Fort Bliss, Texas. Very proud of both my sons.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. My wife, Robin, and our dog, Mia. We have a little miniature Australian Shepherd, and we have a cat, Nico. And both animals have middle names, too, because that's what my wife thinks that you need to do with animals when you have them.
Animals are children.
Yes, they are our kids now that the other kids are gone and have their own lives. And been in Folsom for, I moved there in 1996. And about a year and a half into being there, this woman moved in 2 doors down with 2 little boys. And next thing you know, I have 2 sons
my goodness.
Moved into my house and put their stuff on their skateboards and pushed it up the street to move up into the house.
Real easy enough.
And that was almost 22 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And now you guys are empty nesters.
Now we're empty nesters.
And now you have your dog that you said you got to get back to.
Right.
I empathize with that because my dogs and my cats and obviously my children are my babies.
There you
so
go.
I get it. We can't ever, after work, we always have to go home because we let the dogs out and feed them. Like, that's like our routine. I'm like, hey, babe, you want to go grab dinner? He's like, we got to go let the dogs out and feed them.
Right.
It's part of the whole thing of owning animals. So I get it.
Well, and I grew up, growing up, I grew up 2 hours south of Sacramento in a little farm town, Gustine, and we had dairy cows growing up. I was in 4-H. And always had, dogs and cats and cows and all that stuff. Yeah. And so animals are my thing, right? I mean, when you're in 4-H and you're training big animals, it was all the way until I was in high school that we had, doing this. And so animals are an easy thing for me to understand. I'm a friend of every animal.
I'm with you. I think most animals are better than some humans.
100%.
Yeah. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know, but I did. So we adopted 2 kittens about 3-4 months ago. We had to put our cat down last year, and my daughter's like, I want a cat. And my husband's like, absolutely not. And then he goes and looks, and we come home with 2 kittens because he wanted them, right? And so I'm with you. I want my kids to grow up like understanding animals, respecting them. So I am all for it. I think it's so good to have animals in the house. They're the best.
Well, and it's one of those things. I know my wife will say, Mia is 9 now, the dog, and they only live so long, and we talk to her all day long. It's just like having another person in the house. So if she's not there, it's going to be a sad time.
Yeah, and it's nice because they don't talk back.
They don't. There's a whole joke about locking your dog in the trunk as well as your spouse and opening it and seeing which one loves you more.
Oh, yeah. And who's it always going to be? Your animal. Of course. Oh, my gosh, I can't believe you're here. Unless it's a cat. Cats definitely know.
All right, cats don't care.
My cats would be like, no, excuse me. So tell me a little bit about how you got in the industry. I know we've talked a little bit, but how you got in the industry and how long you've been in it.
Yes. So funny thing. So my career out of college, I went to school up at UC Davis, and I thought I was going to be in agriculture. Got a degree in ag business, and then fell in love with advertising when I was in there. And so I ended up in the radio industry and was in radio advertising sales for 18 years here in Sacramento at different radio stations and CBS radio and Intercom broadcasting, and managed sales departments. But during my career, I had done advertising for mortgage companies. And during that time, it was in the probably early 80s. Everybody tried to recruit me into the mortgage business, but advertising was my thing. I was like this. It's like, nothing.
Love it. Yeah.
Fast forward towards the end of my radio career, when I moved back out of management and I was selling, I was going to move out and be an advertising consultant, and a mortgage guy contacted me and said, hey, I need some help with my marketing. And he was fairly new in it. And so I had to be his consultant. I really had to dive into, okay, what is this industry about? You know, where do the customers come from? All those sorts of things. This was back in 2000, I guess it was in 2004.
Great time to get in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, well, I wasn't in it yet, but so at that time I was looking for something new, and the business was growing, and my wife and I thought we wanted to invest in real estate, and I always felt like if I was going to do something like that, I should know more about it. So I looked around and said, okay, you know, I could be a realtor. What could I do in the industry? I could be a realtor. I could be an appraiser. I could be in lending. And when I looked at the aspects of all three of those things, the lending side seemed to make the most sense to me for my skill set of what I had from the advertising business. And so I literally, a friend of mine, I heard that she was going to get out of radio and get into lending, and a couple other people had already done that and they were successful. And literally I wanted out of that industry so bad, I went and applied and took the test to get my real estate license, because at the time you had to have a real estate license to be a mortgage broker.
That's right, yeah.
In 30 days, I got my real estate license. I quit my job and jumped into mortgage in May of 2005.
Wow.
And then 2008, 9, 10, 11 happened.
You're
And
all,
so I always say, it's like, you know, years ago when Disneyland, when I was a kid at Disneyland, you had different tickets for the rides, right? And the e-ticket ride was the one that was the most scary. And so in lending, I say, if you don't start at the top, you can't have the e-ticket ride unless you start at the top of the industry and ride it all the way to the bottom.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
I rode it all the way down to the bottom. You know, the business it was just a scary time, and rode it back out the other side. And now here I am since 2005.
And you made it through.
I made it through.
I talk about this, or I've only talked about it a few times, but it's interesting, like hearing different perspectives of like people who've been in the industry for, let's say, 30 years, who did go through that and had like a 15-year career, then went through it, and then now have a 10-plus-year career. And they're like, yeah, that was the worst of what it was, right? Like we've had little ebbs and flows and ups and downs and goods and bads, but there was nothing worse than that time. And I know for me, I was young, and I think I was graduating high school when really everything started melting down, but my family was all blue collar workers. So for me, it didn't affect my family, but my husband's family was. And so it's interesting now seeing 10 years later, all that they went through, and it's almost a learning curve or learning perspective for my husband and I, like, okay, we don't want that to happen to us. So here's ways we can, you know, do things to make sure that doesn't happen to us. So while it was like one of the hardest times of a lot of people's lives, it's a good learning tool now. 10 plus years later, we're like, okay, so we know what not to do next time. Because man, what a time to get into the industry. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. And quite frankly, I mean, the hard part for me during that time was I was still so new in it. I still didn't know what I didn't know. Right. And so having the perspective, and I knew when I got into the industry, when I was looking at a lot of the loan programs, it's like, I don't want to sell those things, because I wouldn't do that for myself.
Right. The
option arm loans and all those kind of crazy things.
What got us in trouble.
But I still didn't have that foundation to understand enough about the industry. So when it hit me really hard. Right. And when I came out of that bad time, I knew what I needed to do. I needed a broader foundation of clients, because what people knew, I'm a brand and advertising guy, right? So people know you for something. When somebody says Bree, and people who know you, they have an image in their mind of who is Bree? What is her personality? You know, what do I associate her with? Well, my association at the time was advertising. Right. People said my name. So people didn't know me for loans. So I knew in coming out of that downturn that I had to have a broader breadth of people who knew me. And prior to going into it, I was wanting to specialize in the VA loans. So now I had to figure out, how am I going to get enough people if I want to narrow my focus to serve veterans in what I do? And as a lender, I do everything, but my focus and everything I present and everything I spend money on and promote is the VA loan. More people had to know who I was. So I literally stopped what I was doing the old way and went on the road and started doing trade shows. And I went all over the state of California for 5 years.
Which is like unheard of. You're the first person to ever tell me that as a mortgage loan officer. Like, yeah, I did trade shows. Like, I don't hear that very often. And you were very successful at it from what, I took away from our conversation. It was a great way for you to get that business and really specialize in that VA loan, because anybody can say, I do VA loans, right? Like anybody could say that, but it's like what you specialize in is doing those VA loans. And that's really your main focus.
It's 85% of all of my business is VA.
That's awesome. Yep. So what brought you to wanting to do VA? Like what made you think like that is what I want to specialize in, other than your son? Or was it your son?
And my son wasn't even in the military at the time.
That's true, yeah.
So that long ago, it's funny. It was kind of a happenstance thing. A realtor contacted me, and I'm trying to remember the year. It was probably 2000. I got in 2005, maybe it was 2007, and said, hey, I have these veterans, and they want to do a VA loan, and they have had a bankruptcy. Will you help them? And as a lender, I'm like, okay, I have no idea how to do a VA loan. So I reached out to, we have wholesale reps who call on us, and I reached out to one of them, and I said, hey, how do I do a VA loan? And she literally, and I said, look, I want to do this, but I don't want to mess it up. Because if I mess this thing up, the realtor loses their commission, the veteran doesn't get their home. She goes, oh, I'll hold your hand. She handed me a binder and said, here you go.
Oh.
That was it. Handed me a binder and said, here's the guidelines. Go have at it. And failure wasn't an option to me for that person at the time. It didn't matter veteran or not. I'm not going to fail on this. So I got through the loan. They got their house, and it was kind of like going through a storm where I got through, and it's like I made it through to the other side, and I went, okay, that wasn't so bad. I could learn how to do this. And I did a couple more, and I thought anytime somebody needs that, I can fumble through it.
Yeah.
And I realized that there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And this wholesale rep didn't even know how to do it. They just handed me this binder. So I said, there may be an opportunity here to help a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And that was where I was going to start focusing and educating myself more. And then the market crashed. And then it was, you do whatever you can to get business and support your family, anything that's there. And when I came out the other side, I still wanted to do that. And so I bought my website, VAloansofCalifornia.com. A lady had contacted me who said, hey, I just want to thank you for your kind words a year ago. Because of what you said to me, I'm now specializing in VA loans. And I had no idea what she was talking about. She emailed me. I'm like, I have no idea who you are. There was this group called Loan Toolbox, and it'd be like if we have the chat rooms today. Yeah. Apparently she had posted something in there about wanting to specialize in something, and I had responded to her. And my response, what it was, she had liked it, she had printed it and hung it up on her wall. Aww. And that was her motivation or whatever. So for the next year she was doing this. So when she contacted me, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so cool. I said, well, how does this work? This is my goal, what I want to do. She said, okay, I'm going to be at this conference here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the National County Veteran Service Officers Association. And I said, what do they do? And she told me these people are out there. All the counties pay these people to help veterans navigate their benefits that they get. I'm going to have a table at this. Why don't you come out and see what I'm doing? In 2 weeks, I got on a plane. Never met this woman before in my life. Wow. Flew out to Minneapolis, saw what she was doing, and that's what launched all this. Wow. And now fast forward today, and she and I are still friends. And she's out of the business. Oh, wow. But literally, that was the National County Veteran Service Officers Conference. I'm now the state subject matter expert for the state of California for all the county veteran service officers. Wow. And so I do their statewide education 3 times a year for them on VA
So it kind of came full circle, really.
Full circle. Full circle. It was kind of crazy.
It is, and it's amazing because I think more people need to know about the benefits that veterans get and are well-deserved, right? And I think a lot of people don't. I think even veterans themselves don't know about the things that they can get when it comes to loans, even insurance. I mean, the whole thing. So that's amazing that you do this and that you are really specialized in that, because I'm sure it is probably I think when I got in the industry, I remember hearing people say like, "Ugh, a VA loan. Ooh, we don't accept the VA loans." And I think it's really, I mean, it's been what 8-9 years I've been in it. It's come around, right? People are like starting to understand it more and accept it. It's not because it's fully financed. Who cares, right? It's still a great offer. So yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of really your biggest specialty. And you have like a pretty awesome team behind you from what I've gathered from our conversations, because you're not a one-man show. You have a few people that you have,
Right.
like, I forget what you call them, not assistants.
No, well,
LOAs.
there's everybody's got different terms, but Cindy Turner is my production supervisor, and she's been with me. I'm gonna say 9 years. I can't remember the year she came. 8 years. I just remember when she first interviewed with me, and she was ill, and I kind of coerced her to come in. She wasn't feeling that well, and I said I just need part-time help, and she really didn't want to be in the industry anymore. She was thinking she was going to get out, and she came. I said, just work with me part-time. I just need some help. And within 3 weeks, I made her full-time, and she's been there ever since.
Wow.
And she's got more experience than I do. I mean, she had been in the industry for 10 years before she came to work with me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then Kim Ball is my transaction coordinator.
There you go. That's the word I was
And
looking for.
she, when the files start, most of the people start with me, but when I'm on the road, it's kind of tougher for me to get to them. But Kim gathers everything up and then packages everything up, and then that information goes to Cindy. And between the three of us, I mean, it's just a small office there. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of loans for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it without the two of those ladies. I mean, they're very, very smart, and they're very caring. And if you go online and you read the reviews about the company, I mean, half the time I am like relegated to the back of the bus because they do such a great job and taking care of people. Very caring. And even when it's the highest stress moment, our customers don't know the stress that we're going through, because our job is really to keep people calm. Mm-hmm. And it can be an emotional time buying a house or refinancing a house, whatever's going on with somebody. And so we're there to be like their doctor, keep them calm. If there's something they have to worry about, we'll tell them. If there's something that's the normal thing, we'll tell them that too, and make the process easy.
And not stressful.
You're
kind of living, I mean, I talk to a lot of loan officers. You're kind of living a loan officer's dream. We've talked about this, kind of like my position. You go out, you get the business. You take care of your clients as well, but you really have a great team behind you that allows you to go do really what a loan officer is supposed to do, right? And I think a lot of people want to get to that point. How can I... maybe you do the pre-approval and you get the client to where they need to be, and then you have a team that will just nurture them until the finish. And a lot of people, that's their goal, is to say, how can I do more business if I'm strapped down to my desk 24/7 a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? I can't get out of my office to even go produce more business because I have to do the loan from start to finish. So you're in a unique position, and I'm sure you did that on purpose to be able to really do what a loan officer is supposed to do, right?
100%. And quite frankly, I mean, I've been looking for another Cindy. I mean, people on my team to manage the files.
Right.
Because we have that much business, I could do more. I mean, literally, my role with the company and my highest and best use with my company is being out in front of groups. I mean, I will be doing something with the National Guard, the Air Guard down in Fresno. Awesome. In October, I'll be with another group in Southern California, another military group. I do education for realtors. I do education for companies, Hewlett Packard and SMUD, and these big companies bring me in because they have veteran groups, and so I go do a talk for them. It could be 100 people, it could be 10 people, it doesn't matter.
Right.
To educate, because it's really a benefit. Well, not really. It is a benefit of service. It's not a home loan program. And so, having people behind me that can nurture that is really, really important. And I think one of the challenges for loan officers is, and I think in real estate in general, we're so about taking care of the customer. We really care about the customer, and we feel like somebody else can't do it as well as we can.
Right, it's controlling.
Right? It is. And so really you have to be able to let go and know that everybody's not going to say the things the exact way I say it, and they're not going to do it. And we all make mistakes, but as long as our heart is in the right place and we're trying to move forward, I say all the time, if I didn't make mistakes, I would expect everybody else not to make mistakes. Right. All we can do is we know where our heart is. We know we have integrity. We go forward and we do the best job we can with the information that we have. And, the big step is being able to bring somebody in and let go of some stuff and know that they're not going to do it like you. And that's how Cindy and I started. It was Cindy and I first. I mean, I had other people with me, but when we really got going, and then I just kept stepping away and saying, I've got to be out. I'm going to go out and educate. That's what I do.
Yeah, and that's huge. Like I said, you're living a lot of loan officers' dream is that that's what they want to do. They want to go out. They want to be able to talk to people, educate them on the home buying process. And they simply can't because they're just tied down to their desk. So, I mean, it's great that you've kind of created that team and you have a good culture. And I know you talk very highly about them. So that's why I was like, I want to bring them up because I know you're not alone.
I'm not alone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
By any stretch.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's good to have that. I feel the same way here. It's like, you can go out and you can leave your desk for a few hours and not come back to a complete mess. You know that you're like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. They've got it. They've got it handled. So
if everybody, I always think about it, I played sports, in high school. I actually played football, even though I'm about the size of a football, but I did get to play football. And, it's one of those things. I always picture our team environment as like sled dogs. So, if all the sled dogs are pulling in the same direction, then everything's going to go really smoothly. As soon as somebody tries to be an individual, if you're part of a team,
right,
then the sled is not going to go as fast because somebody's pulling over here.
Yeah.
And, in our office, there is no, hey, it's not my job. It's about our goal is to get somebody to the end of that track.
Yeah.
And we have our roles. I'm a licensed pilot. Okay. I learned how to fly years ago. I haven't flown for a long time, but in pilot training, they teach you learn how to fly with two pilots. And the whole deal is each of the pilots in the front has their own role. And if I'm the one flying the plane and I have my co-pilot and if it's a big plane, I have to go to the back. My job is to say, hey, I need you to take the airplane, and that person has to acknowledge, okay, my airplane. I don't just go, hey, take the airplane and get up and go back. And he's like, I was paying attention over here.
Right.
Right. So, but in our office, everybody has a role. You do your thing, and then if somebody needs help, you ask for help, and everybody helps each other.
It's like you should have been here yesterday, or yeah, was that yesterday? We have a consultant coming into our office a couple times a year, and one of those things is like asking for help, right? Raise your hand when you need help, because I think a lot of people think it's like shameful, like, oh, I don't want to be the person that needs help. And it's like, we're all trying to do our best every day. Right. So we kind of have a saying like that we're trying to go by. It's like one person does something one way, somebody else does something the other way. Now we're trying to like embrace like the Sky Insurance way, right? Like kind of having that streamlined way of doing things. So that way, if one pilot has to take over for the other, it's not like, how do I do it? It's like, no, this is how we do it. It's just like A, B, C. There you go. So that's very interesting that you brought that up, because we just had this conversation yesterday. So it's good to see other businesses taking that approach, because I think when you're just new at taking that approach, it can be intimidating. You're like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. It's like, no, we're just going to do it the Sky way, or do it your guys' way. So that's important. It sounds like you guys are all on the same page, which
we try. It's never perfect, but
No.
there's that book, The E-Myth Revisited, that somebody told me about years ago, and it's kind of, if you ever read this book, it's kind of the franchising way. You create manuals, you create lists of each job role, what your responsibilities are, and then you can plug and play people into that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people don't have time to sit down and figure those things out.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, in this industry, there's a lot of people who are very successful. Your industry, my industry, we don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
We can look to other people and go, what's successful there, and get information from them, and then you try different things and see what works for your organization. Yep,
exactly. And that's a good thing about our industry, and especially when you find like-minded loan officers you work with, or insurance agents that we work with, is like sharing those ideas, because everyone will do it a little differently, but we all want the same result is really what it comes down to. So tell me a little bit about, because like I said about 8-9 years ago when I got in the industry, there was like that, like, oh, the VA loan, right? So what are like some of the myths about a VA loan that maybe used to scare people off? Like you've heard of that, right? Where people are like, oh, I don't want to accept a VA offer. And you're like, why? So what are some of the myths? Like, why was there a stigma about that?
Yeah, good question. And it depends. The myths are different in the military than they are in the real estate and finance field.
That makes sense.
And in the real estate and finance field, long before I was doing loans, the VA loan, from what I understand, was a difficult loan to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, and this goes back, before 2005, and I don't know where it started, but prior to this current period, loans were underwritten at VA, and it was a government underwrite, and so the loans had to go there, and
say no more.
In government, things don't really move, right? There's no timeline there. Whereas now VA loans are underwritten in the banks, and the same underwriter that might underwrite a conventional loan in the morning is going to underwrite a VA loan in the afternoon,
so it's
right? So it's the same process there, and so. One thing is that VA loans take a long, long time. In reality, like I can only speak for our office, if I can close a conventional loan in 25 days, I can close a VA loan in 25 days. There is no lag for us in getting it done. And there's still challenges with lenders who don't do a lot because it is a different process. And so if they don't do them all the time, they're not proficient at doing it. It would be, I tell people all the time, it's like the lender who can do a 203K rehab loan, FHA 203K. You might do one of those every other year. Well, I mean, every time you do it, it's a hard thing to do. Or a realtor who, they do a commercial loan. I mean, a commercial sale, right? It's like, okay, selling it, but I don't do commercial all the time. Right. So that's kind of tough. Sorry about that.
Okay. And it's clunky. So you're just trying to like work through. You're like, oh gosh, here we go. Okay. I think we're doing this right. Cause I know there are different things about the VA loan versus conventional or an FHA loan.
And here's the thing. The only thing that's really different. So you had the people who were worried about the timing of it, that it would take too long. And that it used to be that the seller had to pay the closing costs because you could get a loan with no money down and no closing costs out of your pocket. Well, the VA has changed that, and there's not even any more, they don't even call them non-allowable fees anymore, which is what it used to be. Now there's certain fees that are limited to 1% of the loan amount. And really, in California, we don't run into this too much because really the limit of 1%, unless you get down a $200,000 loan or lower, you're never going to run into a problem on hitting that limit. So a veteran can make an offer like anybody else. They can split title, they can split escrow, they can pay over appraised value. They can do anything anybody else can do and use the VA loan and qualify for, a veteran will qualify for almost 50% more purchase price, all things equal. So if you're putting 20% down and 20%, because you can put money down on VA.
And the rates, right?
And the rates are better.
Yeah.
The rates are better by quite a bit. There's a lot of reasons why people might say no. And, on the seller side, am I going to have to pay for the veteran's closing costs? Well, I already answered that. No, you don't have to pay for those. The appraisal process, they think it takes a long time. Well, they have up to 10 days to turn the appraisal around, 10 business days from when they accept it. But quite frankly, the appraisers now who are approved with the VA appraisal panel, they actually make more money on a VA appraisal than they do on conventional, because in conventional and FHA, there's an appraisal management company in between that's taking money. So if I'm going to make money, which deal do I want to do first?
Right.
The one I'm making
And
more.
isn't it fair to say in our current times in general, they're kind of taking longer. So you're really like, welcome to everybody, right? It doesn't matter if it's VA, conventional, FHA, it doesn't matter. It's taking longer all around. So, because I had heard that before, like, the VA appraisal takes way longer. So knowing that, it makes sense. If they make a little bit more money, they're going to be quicker to take that appraisal over the conventional one.
The other quick thing, and sorry to interrupt, the other quick thing is that people don't like is that there's a pest inspection required. Okay. And so you have to have a clear Section 1 pest, meaning there's no dry rot and there's no active infestation of termites. So now we can actually accept this document called an NPMA 33. So it stands for National Pest Management Association 33. If the pest company determines that there's no active infestation and they're willing to sign this document, because in California they don't use this form, other states they do, but VA will accept this, says no active infestation, that will suffice for the full pest inspection.
Oh, nice.
But even if you go through the full pest inspection, and if there are repairs that are required, the veteran can pay for the repairs. It didn't used to be that way. They used to require that the seller pay for it. Well, that's not the case anymore. So at the end of the day, there's really no difference except that we have to deal with this one thing with the pest. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want to make sure that the house
I
they're
was
buying
just about to
doesn't
say
have
that if I'm going to buy a house, I want to make sure it's not infested with dry rot. That seems like a pretty logical
and
thing.
Termites and
termite, anything.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not a vet, so for me, it's just because I want to do it because I'm a normal person, because I don't want to have a house that I walk into and I have $10,000 worth of damage now I have to deal with. Yeah. So makes sense. Well, we're going to take a quick break here and we'll talk a little bit about rates, current market, and all that fun stuff we're dealing with right now. We'll take a quick break and we'll get right back.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for taking a break. We are now back with Andrew Vierra, and we were just chatting a little bit about the VA loan. And at the break, I asked him, I'm like, is there do you see as much fluctuation in rates with VA loans? And he's like, yep, it's just like, regular times. So I kind of want to touch a little bit on rates. Obviously, you don't need to quote rates, but kind of the current market we're in. where you see this market going. Are we going up? Are we going to crash like everybody says? Yeah. What's your take on it? And what's your take? I mean, you could also spin it with like the VA loan as well.
Yeah. Well, here's a funny thing. I already talked about living all the way down to the bottom of that roller coaster, right? I don't personally, unless something's crazy, I don't see a crash the same way that we had before. Last time, I think anybody who's a lender who lived through that knows that the underwriting, really, we had a foundation, because the underwriting is really your foundation of the house that you're going to build on it. It was faulty. The underwriting was, the guidelines were poor. It wasn't bad underwriters. It was just, hey, these people don't really qualify, and everything collapsed. Now, underwriting is solid. What we're seeing in price appreciation, as everybody knows, is because of supply and demand. And really, it's really a perfect storm, especially in our region, because when you had the downturn, you had people, if your family lost their house and they moved in with another family, well, now they're not buying a home. So they're sitting there waiting to create another household. So there's opportunity to create a household pent up in these extra homes. People moved in together. But you always have the natural progression of households being created as people get older. So you come out of high school and you do whatever you're going to do and you say, okay, I'm ready to buy a house. That's the natural progression.
Right.
That all got stumped, as well as people who sold their homes. So you have all this demand that gets stopped. Now the economy starts to grow again, and those people come out of their holes and they want to buy. You have the natural progression that's always going on. And oh, by the way, we are in this region, we're close to the Bay Area. So when things are appreciating really high there, we have a natural progression of people wanting to come to the Sacramento region, which started before the pandemic. And oh, by the way, now we shut down. And we got all these people that can now telecommute, right? So now they're all coming here too. So we have all these funnels of people that are coming to our region, creating, it's simple economic supply and demand. So right now, the supply of new homes can't keep up with the demand of people coming here. The builders can't keep up. Certainly, as interest rates increase, which, interest rates go up with anticipated inflation, I think we kind of all think that eventually inflation is going to stick and interest rates will rise. I think we'll just kind of see a natural leveling of home price appreciation. It can't go up forever.
Right.
I just don't feel like in that scenario that we're going to see this crash like we saw before. That's what my gut says.
I think most like professionals I talk to have a very similar opinion. It's like, yeah, we have so much demand, like unless that demand goes away overnight, there's no way it's just going to take a nosedive and be crash like it did 10 years ago or however long ago that was. So, gosh, it was 10 years ago. I said that and I was like, wait, no. Oh, yeah, no, that's 10 years ago. That's wild. But yeah, that's a good take on it. I never have actually heard that whole like progression of it. It makes sense. Yeah, you move out, you get a job, you now want to buy a house. And people who moved in who have multiple families living under one roof now looking to buy. So, never heard that. So, it's a really good take on it. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. Imagine that. And yeah, I'm with you. I think it's, you see on, if you're on Instagram, Twitter or whatever, a lot of people my age too, or maybe a little bit younger, say those types of things that aren't educated on why it crashed last time. They'll say, I'm waiting to buy a house until it crashes. And it's like, I think especially in the counties we live in, Sacramento County, Placer County, El Dorado County, it's just not going to happen anytime soon. There's so much demand for houses. Every corner I turn, there's a new home being built. I go up 50, I look over to the right and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy seeing all those homes.
10,000 homes going in out there.
10,000 homes. And I thought, when I heard that, I go, where are they putting that? And I'm like, oh, wow, that open field, huge open field makes sense. So it's interesting. I think I'm excited to see what the future holds. Hopefully it's all good stuff, right? I'm really happy you came on, gave us some insight about the VA loan. I really found it interesting, like some of the things that we talked about. Why people don't want to accept offers for the VA loan. And I think it's good to get that word out there. It's like, it's not as scary as you think it was, or that VA loan you did 5 years ago and it was different than what it is now. So I think it's good to kind of get that word out there. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I know you have your website, like phone number, email. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So the best way, everything's there, is VALoansofCalifornia.com. Okay. That's got everything on it. My company is Wealthwise Mortgage Planning, but VALoansofCalifornia.com has everything.
Easy to remember.
it's one of those things, and I tell people all the time. I help loan officers if they're trying to do a deal, or realtors get deals in, and maybe the loan officer, they're not understanding it. The loan officer, they feel, isn't quite up to speed on it, and they have questions. And quite frankly, people call me, and a lot of times actually, I keep them with their current loan officer and say, look, here's where you are in the progression. Yes, the loan officer is doing this correctly. It's a hard thing, especially as agents. I feel for realtors, they never know the proficiency of the lender that's doing any type of loan that comes to them when they get an approval letter. They have no idea if this person really knows what they're talking about. I can just say for our office, we're very, very careful. We never put out an approval letter unless we know that somebody is truly approved. And in the VA world, where people make a lot of mistakes is we need what's called a certificate of eligibility. So that is the golden ticket for the active duty military or veteran to be able to use this program. Until the lender has that certificate of eligibility, doesn't matter what the finances are, they can't use the VA loan program. And a lot of lenders don't know that, and they wait to the end to try and get it. And I've had situations that realtors called me and said, hey, can you look at this borrower? And they're out looking at homes and find out that the veteran can't get it. They don't have the proper time and service or the proper discharge, and they're out looking at homes. And so some of these big lenders, these call centers, and it's top name brand companies, I end up getting a deal later and find out that the call center person didn't really know what they were doing and wasn't up to speed on it.
This is what they advertise for.
And so it's tough because when somebody makes a mistake, especially because the VA brand has had a tough go of it, right? People hear VA and they think, every time somebody else makes a mistake, it keeps perpetuating that bad brand.
That's true.
But it's really about, and I can give people, things that they need to know to ask their lender to find out if the lender is really proficient at doing it. I don't have to do every deal. What I care about is that veteran who has earned this benefit with the service to our country, that they get to use their VA home loan benefit if that's what they're choosing to do.
Yeah, which is very well put, because I think, like I said in the beginning of this, a lot of veterans don't know that is even an option for them. So, and it's such a great loan, and it's you're getting the best rate as you deserve, but a lot of people don't know about it.
My biggest thing to everybody, and when I do my talks for the military and when I educate for the real estate community, is just ask. Yeah. The answer is no if you don't ask. So just ask. Right?
You've earned it.
You've earned it.
You served our country.
Yep.
Well, thanks for all that you do. I think that's wonderful that you've kind of found a passion, and now you have a son who's in the military. So that's pretty cool too. But yeah, thank you for coming on our show. It's been nice to kind of have a different take on what we've been doing the last couple months with this. So thanks again. And yeah, we will talk to everybody soon. And thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yes.